Welcome back to Unraveled Game Thoughts. I am now on my top 51 to 60, and I'm going to post this one on my my public. Everybody can see it, and then the next one I might post my like 1 through 20. But the others, if you're like, where are the numbers since 91? Well, I posted the first one there. I have a Patreon page and a Ko-Fi page, and they're free. Like, you could just go there, but I'll put the link in the comments, and everything is public. You just have to go there to get the link. And then I sometimes chatter about other things on there that are interesting, or maybe games I've played. I don't always have time to make a video, so I might do a post there on a particular game, or like Inventors of the South Tigris came recently, and so I didn't have time to make a video of it just yet. I probably will at some point, but not yet. And so I posted my thoughts on that game after my first playthrough for folks to read. But again, you don't have to be a Patreon. Definitely welcome that, but it's not. I'm just really just trying to get in the habit of creating some content for those pages and putting some stuff out there. Maybe down the road, better video equipment, better film production quality. I might consider that, but for right now, I'm just trying to enjoy my hobby. So without further ado, let's get on to number 60 for 2024 Unraveled Game Thoughts Top 100. Number 60 is, and forgive me, I am going to type in my stuff on my phone here so I can get to BGA and see what we got. Marvel Champions is my number 60. Remains a great game. If there is a singular reason why I don't get this game to the table nearly as much as I would like to, it is simply because you got a little bit of the deck building element. So we're going to pick our heroes. We're going to build our heroes deck. That takes a little bit of time, and then we're going to play the game. And the game often takes a decent amount of time. I want to say probably 2 to 3 hours to beat the villain, at least in my experience thus far. But it is a fun game if you really like the Marvel IP, which I enjoy the Marvel IP. Big fan of the Infinity series that Marvel did in the theaters, and I like a lot of the superheroes from Marvel. So I really enjoy it. I feel like the deck, each hero you play with in Marvel Champions is a very thematically built deck. Is it 100% thematic? No, it's not 100% thematic, but it's very good. And I think they did a good job of setting those up. I don't have every hero in the game, but I've got quite a few. I got an insert where I can have the different heroes. So I probably got 20, something like 20 heroes. But I also have the 2 of the expansions, the Red Skull expansion and the Thanos expansion, in hopes that I'll be able to play through those eventually one day. They're just sitting in my closet waiting to be played, but it's kind of one of those. I'd like to have a group that's kind of willing to go and sit and play, get a hero and play through it together, because I think that'd be more fun. So that's more of a future goal. So I'm not even putting it on my what do you call it? Like in my board game arena app, you can put your challenges. I don't even make it a challenge yet because I feel like it's like it might be a year or so out before I actually get around to having the time that I feel like I can sit down and commit to, all right, this night of the week we're going to do this. Right now, every game nights are so scattered, it's hard to tell. So that is Marvel Champions. I got it at 8.39, designed by Michael Boggs and produced by Fantasy Flight Games. That was number 60. Number 59 is I wonder if this designer, no, this designer has other games. I'm trying to remember what his other games were. First I have to spell it right. And this one came out in 2021. Stroganoff by Andrea Stedding. and the art is fantastic. Art is by Masij Yannick, and it is really great art. I love this. I've seen this guy's art's been in other things too. I can't remember everything it's been in, but I really like his art. This is published by Game Brewer, and it is a good. The only thing that keeps this game from being as high as I wish I could be is I think there's something missing. Like there's some gap in the game mechanics that I don't want to say if it's unbalanced, but there's something that's not quite balanced about it, or at least that's my intuition, having played a number of games, leads me to think there's something imbalanced about it. That being said, I really like the market for the fur tiles. I love how beautiful it is. It's another one of those games that's really fun to set up, and it just looks gorgeous when it's set up. And I do like a lot of the mechanics in the game and feel like they are very nicely functioned together. And so it is not a game that like there are some games where I'm like, oh, that's too broken. I can't even enjoy playing it anymore. This is just, it's more like an emptiness that sits at this one part of the game, and everything else in the game is great. The horse market is fun, where you horses are part of the currency. You've got coins, you've got horses, and you've got the furs, and they're all like currency in different ways that you can manipulate in the game to try to achieve your goals. And they're all good. It's all fun. I enjoy the various parts of the game. I want to say it was something with the point cards that are kind of like, that could have been better, or they need more of them, or something. I forget it's been a minute since I played, but like I remember thinking if they expanded this part of the game, and I have not played the expansion, so I don't know how much that adds to or maybe fills in the potential gaps in the game, but that is on my radar. I would love to add that expansion to this game and see how that accentuates what's there. A lot of times if the game's not already starting out in a really good spot, I'm kind of like, like Raiders of the North Sea, like I don't think I'd ever want to play Raiders of the North Sea without expansions with it, because the expansions add so much and it's necessary. So I just don't add Raiders, because now I don't have to add the whole thing to my thing. I've got Raiders of Scythia. If you watched the previous section, then Raiders of Scythia, you would have you heard that one. This one is one that's like, I like it enough as a base game that I wouldn't mind adding to it to get more out of it. I feel like I would get a little bit more out of the game possibly. Although I don't think I played a single game of Michael Steddings, or Andrea Steddings, that had an expansion. So I really don't know how well he does with adding content later on. But nevertheless, there you go. The challenge is finding that expansion, because I didn't do the Kickstarter. It was a little more expensive than I wanted to pay for how much was coming. And I thought, well, I'll wait, and maybe down the road somebody somewhere will be selling it, and I can pick up a used copy or something. But we will see. All right, moving right along. Number 58. Did this come out last year? I kind of feel like it did. It's 2023, so it did come out last year. This is Nar by Thomas DuPont, and Nar is largely a race, really. You're using Vikings, and you're kind of triggering different bonuses, and you're trying to race around this track, and whoever's there first wins the game, or gets furthest along if several of you reach the end. I've not mastered this game. I've played it probably 5 to 10 times on BGA, and I like it, and I kind of have a basic understanding of the rules, but it's not one of those games where I've grokked out how everything fits together super well. I just have this general sense of how it fits together, because I think I read through the rules once and then kind of put it all into place, and then I went and played other things, and so I've played it a few more times since then. But it's got enough complexity that it's not like I could explain this well to somebody. But I know you're drafting a Viking, or you're trading in things to add cards to your like your tableau, and then you use a certain number of, I think it's helmets or rings, maybe these like a crown, and you can turn them in. You can trigger certain parts of your tableau that you built out, either one, two, or all of them, depending on how many of those crowns you're turning in. And so there's a little bit of a tricky puzzle trying to get down there. And then there's another section of the track that's like a mountain. And the further you get down that track, the more it's like I think it's a multiplier for another part of the game for getting around the edge. And so there's some a nice mix of asymmetric puzzle pieces that you're putting together around the theme of Vikings. And it's pretty fun. I like it. So that's Gnar, number 58, 8.4 for me. Number 59 is a game I've probably had in my collection for a decent amount of time now, maybe since like 2020 or something. But it's a 2019 game, which I typed in the wrong, or I typed in the right game and then clicked on the wrong one, unfortunately. Wow, we are not winning here. Got all thumbs. All right, this is designed by Henry Audubon and published by Keymaster Games. You guessed it, it is Parks. I like parks. Our family has visited national parks, quite a few national parks across the country, and this one has some of the iconic art you've probably seen if you've been to national parks and you've gone into their visitor center and you've seen some of the art or stuff on mugs or shirts. This has a lot of that iconic art that you will see in those places, and it's pleasant. You're hiking down a trail, you're picking up resources, you're using the resources to, quote, visit parks. Basically, you pay the resources, you visit the park, and that park becomes part of your tableau of points that you are gathering. I have the wildlife expansion, and I also have the Nightfall expansion. And I would argue both of those expansions add a good amount to the game. The Nightfall expansion, I believe in particular, was very good. Like adding that tent ability, I feel like really unlocked a lot of more potential in the game. The game is pretty dry base game, but when they added that in there, that added a good amount of complexity. And then you have cards that have some extra triggers that came with, I think they came with Nightfall, but then they added some more in the wildlife, I believe. It's a fun game. Now, one of the interesting thing is I don't feel like it takes long to play if you're just playing 2 to 3 players. I think you can play this game in 60 minutes. If you are playing a 5-player game of this, and I played a 5-player game of this, it took like 4 hours to play a 5-player game. So I don't recommend that for a 5-player game. I was surprised at how long it took. But yeah, you probably want to stick to, it says best at 3. That is probably about right. I'd say 3 players is good. 2 players is fantastic. 4 players is doable, but it starts to get a little long in the tooth at that point. So there you go. If you like art and you like just a light, almost Zen-like game, I feel like Parks is a good way to go. Let's see if we can spell again. We are going to do sea, salt, and paper for number 56. Now, this probably helps itself in that the art is origami sea animals. And when I was growing up, I did a lot of origami. In fact, on my bookshelf in our living room, I have like probably 15 to 20 origami books from all different ones, and they've got some pretty unique stuff in them. I'm not going to say I'm very good at it, but I enjoy it every once in a while, and I like doing it with my kids. And every once in a while, something crafty will come up, and it'll be like, well, we want some origami like fish or something. I was like, yes, I can do that. Can't do the most complicated fish, but I can do some origami fish if I just follow the instructions in the book, and so it's a lot of fun. So this game, which has origami art, that's pretty much like, I don't know that has anything to do with the theme per se, but it's got the origami art, which is really cute. And it's almost like a poker game with cards to some degree, because you're really playing round after round, trying to get up to 40 points. I think it's 40 points, and the trick is you're gonna draw. You're either drawing 2 cards off the top of the deck blindly, picking one that you're going to keep in your hand and then discarding the other, or there are 2 discard piles, so you can pick off the top of either discard pile as long as there's cards in the discard pile. And you in your hand you could have points. Now there are certain cards that pair together, and cards that pair together also can be played, and you can, when they're played, they do something for you. Let you draw an extra card, let you steal a card from an opponent, something. Get a card from the discard pile, and so there's a little bit of back and forth because you have to play a couple of turns within a round. Eventually, someone is going to have 7 points of cards, either the pairs that they've played, and you don't have to play the pairs for them to count as points. They could be in your hand, but once you've played them, they can't be taken from you. So if they're in your hand, they could potentially be stolen. If somebody gets there's a human and a shark are a pair, so you play that, you get to steal 1 card at random from a person's hand. So when you have 7 points in your hand, you have an option. You can now either say stop, and if you say stop, everyone puts their hand out, and everybody scores their points. There's no color bonus. You just get, well, you do get color. You get the number of points that are in your hand. I don't think you get a color bonus. I think you just get point. Everybody gets points in their hand. That's it. If you say stop, last chance, then you're kind of betting that you have more points than anybody else. And if you win that bet, you go around, everybody else gets 1 final turn except for you, and then you still have more points than anybody else. You get all of your points, and you get your color bonus. So there's like 8 different colors, 10 different colors of cards. So whichever color you have the most of, you're going to count that. So let's say I have 3 black cards, I get 3 points. That's my highest color count. Everybody else, they only get their color bonus. So whatever points they might have had 5 points in their hand, but if you said stop last chance, and let's say they even got up to 6 points, but it didn't beat, obviously it didn't beat your points, you had to have at least 7 to even say that, then they're only going to get their color bonus. Now, you could hedge your bets. You can play the game like, you know what, I'm just going to collect a bunch of one color, and so even if I don't get the points, if I have to settle for my color bonus, I still get a number of points. So that is a interesting strategy you can do in the game. And so let's say they had 6 of a color, they didn't have a lot of other points, but now they only get their color bonus, then they still do okay. Most of the time you're going to go after points, and so your color bonus tends to be somewhere like 2 to 4 or something like that. If you as the person who said last chance and got it, get both. You get my points, I get my color bonus. Now if you lose, then you only get your color bonus, and everybody else gets their points. And so it's a lot of you're like playing poker a little bit in this game, but it's a really good game. It's a lot of fun. It's very quick. Doesn't take long to play. So, Sea Salt and Paper, got it at an 8.47, designed by Bruno Cathala and Theo Riviere, and produced by Bombix Games. All right, moving on to 55. I know this is published by Starling Games. Can you guess what it is? You probably guessed it. Everdell. You're right. Everdell is my number 55, 8.47. James A. Wilson is the designer. I've probably got like 4 expansions, 3 to 4 for this game. I love the game. The game is fun. The tableau building and building a little city of anamorphic creatures. That's a blast. Setup is a little bit of a bear. I probably should, I don't want to say, like, playing just the base game, I feel like it needs a little bit more, but when you get all those boards out, it just takes a while to set up. So that's the only thing that's my downfall, or my negative criticism of this game, is how much it takes to set up. But it is pretty. It's got really nice components. It is fun to play. So every time I play it, I have a great time. So it stays on my list. I can't. I had Far Shore at one point. I thought about trading Everdell because like Far Shore is easier to set up, but my family really liked Everdell. They didn't care as much about Far Shore. Basically the same game, so it's kind of surprising. But they really were married to Everdell, and it remains on my list, and it is not a bad game, and it's actually easy to get people into. The challenge I think for a new player is the resource management's tight. So if you're not used to games, this is not really a gateway game, but it's just above. Once somebody kind of understands resource management a little bit, you could probably do okay. You just have to understand that if you don't build up your resources at the beginning of the game, it's really hard to fill out your 3x5 15 or 15 card tableau, 3x5 tableau. Once you have figured that out and you know how to do that, you can actually end up at the end of the game where you've got your tableau filled, but now don't have room for anything else. So when you really get pretty good at the game, it becomes like, how do I just get the best points in here, and how do I time that pivot in the game to where I'm going from building up my resources to now I'm just trying to get these point cards that really are going to score me in-game points the most as I can get. So that is Everdell. Number 54 is maybe one of what I feel is one of the most underrated games that's out there. And I have it rated at an 8.48. I think this is an absolutely fantastic game. And it is designed by Isaac Childress. No, it is not Gloomhaven. Produced by Cephalofair Games. It is Founders of Gloomhaven. And Founders of Gloomhaven is... I think it got a lot of hate because people were expecting something more akin to Gloomhaven, and it wasn't, and they didn't really like it. And I wonder if a lot of people find it dry. The trickle-down point system is a little bit hard to grok, but I do think it's creative, even if it's hard to kind of wrap your mind around. But once you have your mind around it, I think it's pretty fun and offers a really unique way to chase points on a board with a tile laying system. It is pretty tough to master, I would say. There's a lot of area control pieces to the game. You could very, very easily block people out probably by placing your stuff in certain ways. But there's some rules in the game that protect against some of that, so it's not like you could just place something anywhere just to block somebody out. You do have to follow certain rules. And I like that the card drafting system. Well, I shouldn't say card drafting system, but there's a deck building mechanic to it. We'll put it that way. There's a deck building mechanic to it. There's a pass round mechanic to it. The way that the major buildings that score you points go out on the board, and there's like a bidding mechanism to how you do that, which you gather these certain gems to participate in that bid. There are some really nicely woven together moving parts in Founders of Gloomhaven. So I think it's flown under the radar. I know I got my copy pretty cheap, probably in almost a throw-off trade. I can't even remember if it was sealed when I got it, like the person never opened the box. But it is a pleasant game to play, and I feel like if you've never played Founders of Gloomhaven, if you've kind of avoided it because you just thought, well, this is not a very good game, nobody seems to like it, I would challenge you to at least get one play in and see what you think after that. Because I think it tends to be underrated for people. A lot of people have rated it a 6.6. And I wonder if also people who tend to be more Gloomhaven fans who gravitate toward that kind of game don't like this kind of game because it's not that. It's not the exploratory dungeon crawl kind of game. I'm more of an omni gamer where I play lots of different kinds of games, and so this didn't throw me for that much of a loop. I was just pleasantly surprised that it was as good as it was for such a passed over game in a lot of environments. But there you go, Founders of Gloomhaven. If you do get to play this game and you've never played it before and you're one that's just kind of passed on it because you just kind of thought maybe it wasn't that good, but you get it to the table and play it, I'd love to hear your comments. I'm always interested in games that I think tend to be more underrated, and I wonder, is that just me? Do I just like that game, or is that like this is actually a game that is kind of underrated, and just not as many people have played it as that might have appreciated it more. Next up on the list is my number 53, A Feast for Odin. Now the caveat to being here at number 53, I've got it rated at an 8.5, is it has to include the Norwegians expansion. Without Norwegians expansion, A Feast for Odin is probably like a 7.2 for me, or something in that ballpark. Not unfun, but it's one of those games that, like, if you're going to actually be competing against other players and they all know what they're doing, and you have the base game, there's certain strategies you just have to go, and there's certain strategies you're going to ignore because the base game doesn't really allow for all the strategies to be utilized functionally in a very competitive game. Now, if you're playing against people that have never played and you're just kind of, picking something and doing what you can and no one's scoring like, a very high score, then that's fine. You could probably have fun with it, and it's worker placement. It's still fun to play, mechanically speaking. But with Norwegians, I feel like a lot of the strategies, almost every strategy, is opened up for a lot more exploration, and that's kind of one of the things I love about this game with the Norwegians is you can explore any strategy you want. A lot of it's going to come down to maximizing your worker placement to get the most out of that you possibly can. I'm probably not very good at it, to be honest. I don't know that I've ever had a really great game of A Feast for Odin and done super well, but it's still fun. And knowing that all the strategies are viable, I feel like I can play it with the expansion and know that, well, if I didn't do well, it's not because that strategy doesn't work. It's just I didn't play it as well as I should have. And I usually make the mistake of not going after islands as fast as I should. I keep thinking I need to build up more resources, and I probably should chase those islands a lot faster. So, really great worker. If you like worker placement, you have to try Feast for Odin. It is worker placement to the max, and lots of different dynamics to, when I place more workers out, I get stronger actions, and I can do more with that. And then there's a lot of tile laying elements to the game as well. Very fun game. If you don't like worker placement at all, then I would not recommend this game for you because it is going to be that. All right, last two, number 52. Did I even say who A Feast for Odin? I guess I assume that everybody knows it's an Uwe Rosenberg game. So there you go. 2016 A Feast for Odin is by Uwe Rosenberg, if you didn't know that already, and produced by Fräulein Spield. All right. So, that being said, I am going to move on to, oops, it's not that one. Put the wrong game in, but it's close. All right. Inventors of the South Tigris by Garfield Games. Yet another Garfield game. S.J. McDonald and Shem Phillips did this one. And art by Mihajlo Dmitrievsky. I probably butchered it. I'm sorry. Inventors is, I'm going to say, interesting. I don't know that this will stay here at this score. I don't know if it'll go up. I don't know if it'll go down. I've played it once live. I've played it solo. I've played it with the designers, and I've had fun playing it every time. I wasn't sure if I was going to back it at first, but I went ahead and backed it. I got it. I'm glad I have it. I really want to do a solid comparison between this and Inventions, The Evolution of Ideas from Vital Lacerda, because they have similar themes. This one's more whimsical thematically. They both operate very differently in how they operate. So they are not the same game at all. They just happen to have a very similar thematic element to them. This one has dice mitigation. This has a little bit of, like, your dice power is going to matter. So if you think like scholars, your dice color can matter, but not as, you don't necessarily need to know a color wheel in this one. You don't need to know a color wheel at all in this one, but the dice power and dice color matter. and how that's placed. Um, there's a little bit of an engine building piece with your workshop tiles where you're trying to build a workshop in there, and so, but I got to play it a few more times because when I played with two other players, we had one player that completely filled up the workshop. 15, I think it's 15 tiles, full workshop, completely full. The other two of us didn't fill out nearly as much. I think I had 2 tiles in my workshop that aren't a starting. You start with three areas in your workshop that aren't technically tiles; they're just there. And then I added like 2 more in the game, maybe 3. Maybe I added 3 tiles. So I didn't have anything in my workshop. But at the end of the game, I ended up with a higher score, and it was really like little points here and little points there and little points here. It was like very interesting, very hard to tell who is winning this game. And we got a couple of rules wrong too. So we need to go back and replay it and get those rules right. And it's got a lot of mechanics in it. And it does take a while to play. We played the 3-round version of the game. Took us 5 hours. Now, some of that was to attend to children, so probably took us 4 hours. But it was a fun game. I enjoyed playing it. So the mechanics of it are great, and it's a lot to think through, and a lot of fun, crunchy decisions to make. But the jury is out on where does it land ultimately on my list. But for now, for this year, for 2024, it's number 52. And last on the list is my number 51. It's kind of slowly gone down the list, but this is one of those games that wouldn't shock me if I get it to the table. Like if I was to get it to the table once or twice this year and play it, it could shoot back up the list a little bit. Like, I wouldn't say a lot, but a little bit, because once we get into this area of games, we're talking like moving up and down gets a little harder because things that are closer to the top tend to be a little more solid. And this is a solid game on my list. I don't know 100% where I feel like it ranks overall, but this is one of the heaviest games that is on my list, although I feel like it's not quite as heavy as people make it out to be. I think that comes with a few plays. It seems to get, there are a lot of crunchy decisions to be made in the game, and a lot of the back and forth on the board makes it tough, I think, mentally. And so how well you hold two things in your brain like that and balance them back and forth might make it a little easier or harder depending on your personalities. Came out in 2020. This is On Mars by Vital Lacerda. I feel like I had maybe another Lacerda on my list thus far, but this is a very good, very creative game. I love the space theme. Ian O'Toole did the art. It's very beautiful. It's very well designed. It's put out by Eagle Griffin Games. High quality, upgraded pieces. So a lot of good stuff in this game. It is complicated, and you have a lot of elements that you're trying to weigh in the balance when you play this game. You're building up cards that can give you other extra abilities. You're trying to gather resources, but you can only gather resources when you're off planet, and then there's a ship going back and forth, and you want to kind of, there are ways to get to planet without using the ship, but you gotta either time it or you gotta use extra resources to get to the planet anyway. And then you only get some things back when you're on the planet, and then you get other things back when you are off planet. So there is a lot to keep up with in the game, and then how you place the tiles on the board. Has to follow certain rules. So yeah, it is not a game I would ever teach to a new person, but new to games. If somebody likes more heavier games anyway. Rated at a 4.67 weight. I don't know. It feels a little high. I don't think it's that weighty. I think there are other games that might weigh more than this, but it's been on there for a while. So if I was probably weighing, I might say 4 or 5. We're not saying it's not 4. I'm just probably say 4 or 5. I think there's room for other games to be a little weightier than this. But anyway, that's me. That's my beef. Lacerda himself might argue against that. But it is a fun game. On Mars is fantastic. If you really like a space theme, this is great. I have the Alien Invasion hidden up on my shelf that you can barely see poking at the top. Haven't tried that yet. I'm really looking forward to trying that one day. But again, that's kind of like the Marvel Champions bit. One day when I have some sort of regular game nights over a period of time and I can get as many of the same people to the table on a regular basis, then I would love to try the Alien Invasion. But it's kind of one of the, I almost want to keep it set up on my table over the course of a couple of months and get it all played and then see what I think. And then I can rate that with it. But I don't think it needs the Alien Invasion. That was just kind of like, oh, that's neat. It's like a little story that you can play through with other players using a game that's a nice base game by itself. So that is my top 51 to 60. Thanks for joining me. If you want to see the other ones, again, I'll put the link to my Patreon and Ko-Fi in the description. I will not. Again, those are you don't have to be a patron to see those things. You just go there, you click on the link, and you can watch it. It's just kind of trying to direct some traffic to that site, which I hope to use, more down the road. But it is a way to try to have some of the more fun stuff and on the actual public channel. And then for those who just like, I really want to get into those other games too, then there you go. Now you have a site off to the side that you can go look at that. And sometimes I'll put other content, thoughts about games, maybe like kind of like blogging or something like that about a game that I run into off to the side. Or if I don't have time to make a video and I'm just like, hey, I decided to compare these two games, I might put that over there because it's an easy way to do some of that chat. So there you go. Have a great rest of your day. From Unraveled Game Thoughts. Until next time.